My name is Megan Baker, and I am 52 years old. I have been managing a catering business, Baker Catering, for over 30 years. This business is a family treasure that was founded by my grandfather, passed down to my father, and then to me. Now, having lost my father, I am facing a new phase. He passed away recently at the age of 75. Until the end, he was concerned about the company. Before he passed, we spent a long time in his hospital room. "Megan, I'm sorry. I've left you a heavy burden," he said, holding my hand and speaking in a weak voice. "Megan, I might have pushed you into a life dedicated to work. That's still my regret." I gripped his hand tightly, holding back tears as I responded. "No, Dad. I chose this on my own. This company is my pride," he continued with a smile. "Please also help Kathy and Nicole. I should have understood them better." I gradually came to understand the meaning of his words after his death. All my memories with my father are tied to this company. Following the chaos after the war, my grandfather started the business with a used food truck, and my father developed it into a full-fledged catering service. By the time I took over, it was already known as a venerable establishment in the area. I grew up watching my father, and this business was my everything. I have been single and dedicated my life to my work. I had opportunities to get married and start a family, but the company always came first. In my early 30s, I was engaged to the son of a business partner, but due to a major store expansion plan, I had to postpone the wedding date multiple times, ultimately leading to a broken engagement. I have never regretted that decision. In fact, that experience allowed me to dedicate myself even more to my work. 2 weeks after my father's death, an unexpected event occurred. Kathy, my father's second wife, came to visit me with her 21-year-old daughter, Nicole. Kathy and my father met at a dance class. Despite being over 20 years younger than him, he was captivated by her cheerful nature and nurturing personality as an instructor. Nicole was born to Kathy and her former husband, Billy Smith. Billy, a rising star lawyer, was immersed in his work, often coming home late and spending weekends away on business. The final straw was Nicole's 15th birthday. Billy missed it due to an important trial, and the family trip he had promised was canceled, leading Kathy to decide on a divorce. After divorcing Billy, Kathy met my gentle father, and they eventually remarried. Kathy and I have a relationship more like close friends than mother and daughter due to our similar ages. My relationship with Nicole was not awkward, but with over 30 years of age difference, we were more like acquaintances than stepsisters. She often met with her biological father, Billy, so there seemed to be no need for her to build a deep relationship with our family. One day, Kathy came to me with a serious matter. "Megan, there's something I need to discuss about Nicole. She wants to take over Baker Catering." I was taken aback by her words. Nicole was studying business administration, but I hadn't heard of her interest in the company. "Before your father passed, we discussed Nicole's future," Kathy continued. "He thought it would be okay to leave the company to her." I sighed deeply. Indeed, my father had been worried about a successor in his later years. He often muttered about the future of the company, knowing that I was single and had no children. However, this was not a decision to be made lightly. I had taken over the company at a young age, nurtured it with our employees, and grown it into a trusted enterprise deeply rooted in the community. Our efforts to actively use local ingredients had strengthened bonds with many farmers and established unique procurement routes. I tried to respond as calmly as possible. "Kathy, I understand Dad's feelings, but this company is not just an asset. It's built on long-established trust and bonds with our employees. It's not something to be decided easily." I will never forget Nicole's expression at that moment. "I can do it," she insisted, her voice trembling. "It's the last wish your dad left behind." However, the situation unfolded far beyond my expectations. Nicole took my cautious attitude as a complete rejection. I studied business administration to take over the company. She protested, with Kathy desperately defending her. Then, she took a drastic step. At her university graduation party, she suddenly declared in front of her friends, "I've decided not to go job hunting. I'm taking over Baker Catering." The atmosphere at the venue froze. I was dumbfounded and could only stare at the scene. I looked at Kathy in disbelief. She clearly felt uncomfortable, looking away. I could see her hands trembling slightly as she held her coffee cup. That night, in the car on the way home, I confronted Kathy. While maintaining the calm I had cultivated from years of business experience, I took a firm stance. Peter, who had been my father's driver for 30 years, was at the wheel. I could feel the tension emanating from him. "Kathy, can you explain? Why did you let Nicole say such things when I was opposed to it?" My voice was colder than I intended. Peter looked worriedly at me through the rearview mirror. After hesitating for a moment, she began to speak. "Nicole can do it. She is excellent." Kathy defended her daughter desperately. "She can definitely do it. She has a talent for business. She majored in business administration at university and studied entrepreneurship. She has many new ideas." "This isn't about talent," I replied quietly, yet firmly. "This business is my life itself. It's built on over 30 years of trust, bonds with employees, recipes passed down from previous generations, relationships with suppliers, and a large community that includes our staff's families. I can't simply hand it over to someone with no experience." Kathy became furious. She had Peter pull the car over to the shoulder, her voice trembling with anger. "You're discriminating against your stepsister. You don't want to pass it on to Nicole because she's not blood related to you, right?" "No," I responded, maintaining my composure. "This is purely a business decision. Nicole lacks experience. I've never seen her passion for this business. I can't simply hand over what my parents and I have built over decades so easily." Peter silently started the car again. His father had also worked for our company. I carry the sentiments of generations of employees' families. The next day, I called Nicole to explain the situation. "I'm sorry, but I can't hand over the company. I didn't know that Dad and Kathy had made such a promise." "What?" Nicole's voice echoed over the phone. "My life plan is ruined. My mother promised me. I transferred to the business school for this. I didn't even look for a job. How will you take responsibility?" The situation deteriorated further. Nicole's father, Billy Smith, is a prominent local lawyer specializing in corporate acquisitions and management disputes. A few days after my call with Nicole, he visited my office with a grave demeanor. "Ms. Baker, let me be frank." Billy began calmly. "Your father intended for Nicole to take over the company. This is a fact, and there are several witnesses." I responded slowly, trying not to show my agitation. "That may be so, but legally?" "Yes, of course." Billy interrupted. "Legally, I'm aware that you have the managerial rights. However," he pulled out a thick file of documents. Inside were detailed analyses of our company's transactions over the past 10 years. Minor contract breaches, slight lapses in sanitation management, and issues with employees' working hours, all normally overlookable offenses, were recorded with surprising detail. These are not major issues in isolation. Billy continued dispassionately. "However, if I assemble a legal team and initiate a lawsuit, you can imagine, can't you? The media would love to cover this story. The dark reality of an established catering company would be the headline. The anxious expressions of employees were palpable through the corridor. Billy's visit had already caused significant unrest within the company. If the company's reputation were damaged, it could jeopardize relationships with suppliers and threaten our employees' livelihoods. I decided to transfer management rights. Whatever happens, I don't know, I said to myself, barely containing a laugh. I will hand over the company to Nicole. but there are conditions. Please ensure the employment of the staff. And the recipes passed down from my father must not be changed. Billy readily agreed to these terms. However, I could not have anticipated the tragedy that this agreement would begin. Nicole started causing problems from the first day. That morning, she arrived 30 minutes late. "I'm not a morning person," she said, causing perplexed looks among employees who had been preparing since early morning. She also did not keep her promise to not change my father's recipes. The first issue arose during a meeting with a long-standing client, Morris Electric, which had been entrusting us with the operation of their employee cafeteria twice a month for over 20 years. When Mr. Morris, the executive director, pointed out, "The taste of the usual stew has changed," Nicole reacted unexpectedly. "The customer is not always right. This is the new flavor. We need to change with the times." The atmosphere froze. Nicole continued her argument, ignoring the sweating salesperson beside her. "For efficient management, it's necessary to change recipes." The situation in the kitchen was even more serious. Even when a veteran chef, who had been with the company for 50 years, explained, "This sauce is a recipe handed down from the previous generation," Nicole wouldn't listen. "This recipe is too expensive. There's no need to use expensive beef. Regular beef is sufficient. We can surely find cheaper alternatives for the seasoning." Even when the chef protested that, "The quality will change," Nicole dismissed him, saying, "We need to abandon outdated ideas. I'm putting into practice the efficiency I learned about in business school." Her forceful attitude extended to procurement as well. She unilaterally cut off a local supplier we had been doing business with for 30 years and contracted with a cheaper supplier she found on the internet. She introduced new ingredients without adequate quality checks. Isn't cost-cutting fundamental to management? Each of her words chipped away at the trust we had built over many years. By the end of the first month, we had lost contracts with 3 major clients, including Morris Electric. In the second month, 2 veteran chefs submitted their resignations. "We're sorry, but we can't utilize our skills with this policy." Then, in the third month, the worst-case scenario occurred. It happened during the 50th anniversary party for a major pharmaceutical manufacturer, a client since my father's time, where our company traditionally showcased its capabilities. More than 100 attendees, including executives, gathered at the venue. About 2 hours after the food was served, the first signs of trouble were reported. Guests began feeling ill, and soon requests for ambulances were made. Ultimately, more than 30 people were hospitalized with symptoms of food poisoning. A health department inspection was immediately conducted. The results were shocking. It was revealed that the storage conditions of the ingredients sourced by Nicole from the new supplier were inappropriate, and basic temperature management had been neglected. The incident was quickly reported in the media, and our long-established reputation plummeted. The claims for damages far exceeded the company's assets, and my personal assets were also at risk of being seized. The most painful thing was the expressions of our employees. "Will our salaries be safe next month?" Their voices of concern quietly spread throughout the company. Nicole's attitude remained unchanged until the end. "I'm not to blame," she shouted, continuing to shift the responsibility to the lack of supervision by the on-site staff. It was clear this would happen, entrusting company management to a naive young woman. Days later, a somber atmosphere filled the special meeting room. Lawyers, accountants, and insurance agents were lined up, with Nicole sitting alone at the front. Billy participated not as her father but as another lawyer. The total damages, including compensation, amount to about $2 million. The accountant read off the figures calmly. "Insurance can cover only about half of that." The insurance agent spread out the documents. "The problem is that violations of basic sanitary management regulations have been confirmed. This constitutes gross negligence, and we are forced to limit the coverage of the insurance." Blood drained from Nicole's face. Billy looked grimly at the documents. The responsibility is clear. The lawyer continued. Nicole's unilateral change of suppliers, disregard for sanitary regulations, and ignoring employees' warnings are all documented. I will pay. Nicole's voice resonated. Although trembling, it was filled with determination. I caused this accident. I don't intend to run away. Billy looked up for the first time. Nicole. Dad, don't help me anymore. She looked straight at her father. I must take responsibility for what I've done. Eventually, the agreed terms were as follows. Nicole would personally incur a debt of $1 million and continue to make monthly payments. The managerial rights were to be immediately returned to me, and Nicole would completely leave the company. Furthermore, she officially acknowledged all responsibility for the accident. From now on, life will surely be difficult, Nicole said with a vacant smile as she signed the contract and left. After regaining managerial control, I was at a loss but began desperately searching for a way to rebuild. At 52, I worked tirelessly, much like when I first took over the company 30 years ago. I continued apologizing to clients daily and worked late into the night drafting a reconstruction plan. However, I also felt the limits of my physical strength due to age. I used to be fine with all-nighters, but now even a few hours of overtime were exhausting. Still, the thought of our employees' livelihoods spurred me on. Thinking especially about the education costs of the children of our long-serving employees, I couldn't easily give up. During this time, unexpected reinforcements appeared. These were old business partners from my father's time. Ms. Baker, your father was a great help to us. It seems the time has come for us to repay this favor. One day, the female proprietor of a local long-established restaurant visited. Her mother had also worked part-time at our company. Thanks to your father employing my mother, I was able to go to university. Now it's our turn to return the favor, she said tearfully. They helped us overcome this crisis because of the long-standing trust we had built. Clients agreed to defer payments, banks eased loan conditions, and most importantly, customers continued to do business with us even after the accident. Some even placed new orders, saying, "We wouldn't trust anyone but Baker's company." When my father was young, he helped a business partner during a financial crisis by lending money interest-free and supporting the company's reconstruction. "Money comes and goes," he always said. Now, I truly understand the meaning of his words. Thanks to their support, the path to reconstruction is becoming gradually clearer. It was especially reassuring when the veteran chefs who had retired came back. "Please let us work under you once again," they said, and I couldn't help but tear up. One day, Kathy came to the company wanting to apologize. She admitted she had spoiled her daughter too much. "Megan, I'm really sorry," Kathy said through tears. "I put your company in jeopardy because I was worried about my daughter's future. Please forgive me." I sighed deeply. "Nicole, she left home soon after that," Kathy continued, her voice shaking. She said, "You've ruined my life and left just like that." I silently placed my hand on Kathy's shoulder. She, too, might have been a victim of this tragedy. What I've learned in my 52 years is that anger and resentment produce nothing. Instead, it's important to learn from these experiences and become stronger. Kathy, it's all in the past now. Let's look forward to a brighter future for everyone. Peter continued to drive for me even through these critical times. During our drives, he would occasionally share memories of the past, the times when my father was president, the struggles when I took over management at a young age, and how the company gradually grew. Each story reminded me of the weight of this company's history. Currently, the company is showing signs of recovery. Regaining lost trust is not easy, but together with the remaining employees, we are making steady progress step by step. Recently, younger employees voluntarily established a quality control committee and proposed a stricter sanitation management system. I was deeply moved by their sincere attitude. From this experience, I've learned an important lesson anew. Business is not just a means to generate profit. It is a precious legacy passed down from previous generations, bearing a social responsibility that affects many people's lives. My father often said to me, "Megan, business is not just an asset. It's a crystallization of trust and responsibility." I feel the weight of those words now. Since this incident, I have started to seriously consider succession planning. However, this time I will avoid hasty decisions. I will take my time to find someone who truly has a passion and sense of responsibility for this work. And most importantly, having overcome this crisis, I have reaffirmed my resolve as a business owner. A year has passed since then. The company has not only recovered but feels stronger than before the crisis. The bond with our employees has deepened, and trust from customers is gradually being restored. Nicole recently started musical activities. I heard she's living alone in a small apartment in New York, working a day job and singing at live houses at night. She continues to make monthly debt repayments while slowly starting her own path. Perhaps she's atoning for her youthful mistakes in her own way. The relationship between Kathy and Nicole remains distant. Looking back, Nicole's attempt to take over the company may have been influenced by her complex feelings towards her mother, Kathy. After remarrying my father, Kathy showed strong interest in our family business. She visited the company weekly, eagerly reviewed accounting documents, and engaged warmly with the employees. Particularly memorable was her reaction when she found an old album. It contained photos of my grandfather at the founding of the company and my father smiling with employees in his youth. What a wonderful family. Kathy held the album with tearful eyes. I later learned that her own family had gone bankrupt when she was a teenager, leading to her parents' separation. This experience might have strengthened her longing for a stable family business. "I don't want Nicole to go through what I did," Kathy once murmured. After divorcing Billy, she supported herself by working multiple jobs during the day as an office worker and at night as a dance instructor, despite receiving sufficient compensation from her lawyer ex-husband. She wanted to teach her daughter the importance of independence. However, this desire might have inadvertently pressured Nicole. A friend of Nicole's later told me that she had been involved in music activities since high school, performing at school festivals and actively participating in local events, but she never told her mother, fearing opposition to the unstable profession. When I heard Nicole had started musical activities, I checked her social media. There, I saw her singing passionately in a small, live house. On stage, she seemed a different person from when she was at the company, singing joyfully and connecting with the audience. The comment section was filled with messages like, "Your song saved me," and "I will come to listen again." I still occasionally communicate with Kathy. Recently, she visited the company, bringing a photo of my father. "Your father taught me what's important in life," she said. Looking at the photo, work is important, but more importantly, living honestly according to one's heart is what truly matters. I nodded deeply as I looked at my father's smiling face in the photo. He taught us a lot until the end. Now at 53, I have a new goal to securely pass this company on to the next generation. To achieve this, I want to invest more in training young employees. Recently, we started holding monthly study sessions for all employees, discussing not only skills but also the company's history and philosophy. Overcoming this crisis has taught me a lot about the importance of family bonds, the responsibility of business, and the importance of continuing to challenge oneself, regardless of age. I will continue to develop the company with these lessons in mind, quietly waiting for a true successor to emerge. Until then, I will continue to nurture this precious treasure built by my father and protected by me.